Who was Cain's wife, and the forgotten daughters of Adam and Eve. The Bible Storyteller. Have you ever wondered how Cain, the firstborn son of Adam and Eve, could have found a wife and had children if they were the only humans created by God? It's a mystery that has puzzled scholars and curious minds for centuries. The Bible's first book, Genesis, tells us that Adam and Eve were the only original humans created by God. But how could Cain have found a wife in a world that seemed to be inhabited only by him and his parents? Where did she come from? And what about the other daughters of Adam and Eve, who are barely mentioned in the Bible? These questions are fascinating, and as we dive deeper into the scriptures, we'll uncover some surprising details that may change how you view the very beginning of humanity. Join me as we explore the untold story of Cain's wife and the forgotten daughters of Eden. The answers ahead may not only surprise you, they may change your understanding of Scripture itself. The creation of Adam and Eve, a divine mystery. In the beginning, before kingdoms rose and nations were born, there was a garden, the Garden of Eden. God, in His infinite wisdom, created Adam from the dust of the ground. But it wasn't until God breathed into Adam's nostrils the breath of life that man became a living soul. Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. This divine act wasn't just about creating a being. It was about giving humanity spirit, purpose, and identity. But God said, "It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him." Genesis chapter 2, verse 18. So, God took one of Adam's ribs and created Eve, the first woman. From this act of love and divine creation, the first marriage was established, the sacred bond of family and union that laid the foundation for the human story. Cain and Abel, brothers destined for a turning point. Adam and Eve's sons, Cain and Abel, became central to the story of human morality. Cain, a farmer, brought the fruits of his labor to offer to God. Abel, a shepherd, offered the best of his flock, including the firstborn and the finest. Genesis chapter 4, verses 3-4. But God favored Abel's offering and rejected Cain's. The Lord looked with favor upon Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering he did not look with favor. Genesis chapter 4, verses 4-5. Why was this the case? Many believe that it wasn't the gift itself, but the heart behind the gift. Abel's offering was given with reverence, care, and devotion, while Cain's offering lacked the same thoughtfulness. God's message was clear. It's not about the act itself, but the heart behind it. Worship is more than ritual. It's about sincerity and obedience. Cain's rejection led him down a dark path, one filled with jealousy, shame, and rage. God saw this inner turmoil and warned Cain, "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it." Genesis chapter 4, verses 6-7. Despite the warning, Cain let his anger consume him. He lured Abel into the field, where he struck him down, marking the first murder in human history. This act, fueled by envy and pride, brought sin into the world in a new way. But the story doesn't end with murder. It takes a deeper, darker turn. Cain's silence and God's mercy. After Cain killed Abel, God confronted him. "Where is your brother Abel?" Genesis chapter 4, verse 9. It wasn't that God didn't know. He already knew what had happened. It was a test, a divine invitation for Cain to come clean. But instead of confessing, Cain responded coldly, "I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?" Genesis chapter 4, verse 9. The hardness of Cain's heart was evident. His response revealed not just guilt, but a refusal to take responsibility. It was a denial of compassion. And with that, the weight of Cain's sin became irreversible. God pronounced his judgment upon Cain. Now you are under a curse and driven from the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it will no longer yield good crops for you. Genesis chapter 4, verses 11 to 12. Cain would no longer be able to work the land as he once did. Instead, he became a restless wanderer, marked and cast out. But in an unexpected turn of mercy, God placed a protective mark on Cain. The Lord put a mark on Cain so that no one who found him would kill him. Genesis chapter 4, verse 15. This mark, often shrouded in mystery, has sparked much debate. Was it a sign of shame, or was it God's mercy in the face of judgment? Regardless, God's mercy preserved Cain, even in his sin. The mystery of Cain's wife. Here's where the story gets even more puzzling. Genesis chapter 4, verse 17 says, Cain knew his wife, and she became pregnant, and gave birth to Enoch. But who was Cain's wife? Where did she come from? The Bible doesn't name her, leaving us with more questions than answers. Some theologians suggest she was one of Cain's sisters, which, though unsettling by modern standards, was a necessity in the early days of humanity. Adam and Eve had many other children. Genesis chapter 5, verse 4. And Cain must have married one of them. It's important to note that at this point in history, marriage between close relatives was not only common, it was necessary for survival. The earth was still young, and humanity had to populate the earth quickly. The practice of intermarriage among close kin was later restricted by God's laws given through Moses, but in the earliest times, it was a way to ensure the continuity of the human race. Building the first city, Cain's legacy. After being marked and exiled, Cain settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden. Despite his punishment, Cain built a city and named it after his son, Enoch. Genesis chapter 4, verse 17. This was a groundbreaking act in human history, the first city built by man. It marked a shift from the simplicity of Eden to the complexity of organized society. Cain, the murderer and outcast, became the first builder of a city. This act wasn't just about defiance. It was an attempt to rebuild, to create something lasting in the face of his shame. Cain's desire to build a legacy, even in exile, speaks to the deep human drive for purpose and meaning, even when tainted by sin. The forgotten daughters of Adam and Eve. Though the Bible mentions Cain and Abel by name, there is little recognition of the daughters of Adam and Eve, despite the fact that Genesis 5:4 explicitly tells us that Adam had other sons and daughters. Why then are these daughters so often left out of the narrative? Their names are never recorded, their stories never told, yet their existence is crucial to understanding the early formation of humanity. The Book of Jubilees, an apocryphal text, which, though not included in the canonical Bible, offers an interesting expansion of the Genesis account. According to this text, Adam and Eve had two named daughters, Awan and Azura. Awan particularly is believed by some scholars to have been Cain's wife. The name Awan, according to some translations, can be linked to words meaning vice or power, carrying a dual significance that might reflect her role as the partner of the world's first murderer, or perhaps hinting at her strength as a key figure in human history. The reason behind the lack of mention in the Bible about these daughters might seem strange at first, but it could simply be because their roles, while essential to the continuation of the human race, did not align with the spiritual line of narrative that focuses on the male descendants, leading to the story of redemption through Noah Abraham, and ultimately Jesus Christ. It is important to note that while Genesis focuses primarily on the male lineage, this doesn't diminish the significance of the daughters. On the contrary, these women likely played vital roles in continuing humanity's survival in the earliest generations. In the end, the lives of these forgotten women may hold profound significance. Though their names are omitted from the pages of the Bible, the forgotten daughters of Adam and Eve were still essential to God's plan for populating the earth. By marrying their brothers or close kin, these women ensured that humanity's line would continue, even in the wake of Adam and Eve's fall from grace. This practice, though considered taboo in later generations, was necessary for the survival and growth of the human race in its infancy. Awan, as the wife of Cain, becomes a figure of mystery. Was her marriage to Cain a symbol of redemption, or rather, a tragic reminder of the consequences of sin? Could her role in the story have been more profound than we imagine? Perhaps she embodied both the strength and sorrow of a woman tied to one of the Bible's most infamous figures. Her name, tied to vice or power, could symbolize the burden she carried, or perhaps the role she played in continuing human life, despite her husband's violent actions. These forgotten daughters might also represent the often overlooked women in Scripture, those whose stories are never fully told, yet whose actions shape the world in ways we might never truly understand. Their silent contributions, particularly in the early human history, are vital to the continuity of life, though not often celebrated in the same way as their male counterparts. Conclusion: the unfolding mystery of Cain's family. The story of Cain and his family is not just one of murder and exile. It is the story of the continuation of the human race, filled with divine mystery and paradox. From Cain's tragic fall to his decision to build the first city, humanity's history is marked by both sin and grace. Cain's wife, though unnamed in Genesis, carries a profound weight in this narrative. Who was she, really? And what role did she play in shaping the future? We are often drawn to the more dramatic parts of Cain's story, his act of murder, his punishment, and the mark placed upon him. But what about the quieter, yet equally important parts of the story? What of the women who carried the lineage of humanity forward, though their stories are not written? The daughters of Adam and Eve, in their silence, may carry the deepest mysteries of the early world. As we journey through these ancient mysteries, we are reminded that the Bible, though not exhaustive in its telling of every name or every event, provides us with what is essential. It invites us to look deeper, not just at the characters who are highlighted, but also at those whose stories are told in silence. The mysteries of Cain's wife and the forgotten daughters of Adam and Eve are in many ways reflections of humanity itself, of strength, sin, grace, and survival. What do you think about Cain's wife? Was she his sister, or is there another mystery behind her identity? The Bible leaves us with more questions than answers, and sometimes that's the way it is meant to be. What do you believe? Do you think Cain's wife was a key figure in continuing the story of humanity? Or is there more to this ancient tale than meets the eye? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into biblical history and mystery.